When they said the baby was missing, you ran over here?
I ran over here to call up in the house. I crawled all the way up in the house, and I came out there. I believe I came out this whole here, back the way I went up under there. When I first saw the baby,
so you seen her out here playing before?
Me and the dude was standing right here. He had a bottle of Mad Dog in his hand. She was sitting on the porch. The baby was right there playing with that little puppy.
But this wasn't the same day she was missing?
No. Hell no. This was months before. And then when the fire hit,
because they set the whole backyard on fire.
Yeah, the
ambulance came.
Trees and all that shit. Ambulance came. Fire department came. We was already trying to put the fire out.
Yeah.
We was already trying to put the fire out. My dude came from across the street. He from New York. He just moved over here before they moved here. He came over to help out. We all got tight and got cool and shit.
Right.
She was the one that flipped out on everybody. So everybody stayed the fuck away from over here.
Aiken County 911, where's your emergency?
Ma'am, I'm at 39 Hillsborough Street. I can't find my baby. She was outside playing, and I came out here after cooking dinner a little bit, and I'm looking for her, but I don't see her nowhere.
They don't deserve that title. That's what a sheriff with 37 years on the job said, on camera, refusing to call two parents mom and dad. He said it 2 days after his team pulled human remains out of a South Carolina reservoir. Remains that had already been dissolved with chemicals before anyone even knew to look for them. What he described in that press conference is the part of this case most people still haven't fully sat with. For days, investigators had been working 2 locations at once. Back at the family home on Hillsborough Street, crime scene tape went up a second time, and deputies spent hours in the woods behind the house with sifting equipment, working alongside staff from the county coroner's office. At the same time, roadblocks went up 80 miles away in Fairfield County, near a stretch of water called Cedar Creek Reservoir, known locally as Stumpy Pond, close to the Javeayah Creek access point. Dive teams, boats, ATVs, and the state's Department of Natural Resources worked that site for days. Midweek, those roadblocks came down without any announcement. No press release, no update. That silence turned out to mean something had already been found. On July 9th, Sheriff Marty Sawyer confirmed it. Investigators had recovered a small number of human remains from that reservoir. DNA testing matched them as consistent with the biological offspring of Javeayah's parents. She'd been found, just not in one piece, and not anywhere close to where the search had originally focused. Then came the detail that changed the entire tone of that room. Sawyer said investigators believe the parents used corrosive chemicals, along with other tools, to accelerate the destruction of Javeayah's body before pouring what remained into the reservoir. Warrants tie that specific act to June 8th. Sawyer called it repulsive and revolting, and said that because of how deliberately the evidence had been destroyed, it's unlikely all of her remains will ever be recovered. In my 37 years in law enforcement, he said, visibly shaken, I have never, ever heard of anything so horrific. Both parents, Michilae Herring, 22, and Javeayah Harris, 23, now face an added charge on top of homicide by child abuse, destruction, and desecration of human remains. Bond, already denied once at their first hearing, was denied again on the new charges. This time, the court specifically called them flight risks. Here's what makes all of that land so hard. Arrest warrants placed Javeayah's actual death between May 1st and June 15th, caused by a head injury from abuse, with no medical care ever sought for her. June 8th, the date tied to the chemical destruction of her body, falls right in the middle of that window, which means by the time Herring picked up the phone on June 30th to report her daughter missing, Javeayah hadn't just been dead for weeks. Her body had already been dissolved and disposed of in a reservoir 80 miles away before that call was ever made. Everyone remembers the search that followed. The FBI, the State Law Enforcement Division, thousands of acres of Aiken County covered on foot. What this timeline confirms is that none of it was ever pointed in the right direction, because the outcome had already been decided weeks before a single search team stepped outside. That gap between what the public was told and what had actually already happened is exactly what's driving a new push in the days since. A petition calling for something named Javeayah's Law has picked up hundreds of signatures. It targets a real gap in how cases like this get charged. State-level laws, often called Kaylee's laws, punish parents for failing to report a missing or dead child in a timely way. But they don't specifically address someone actively fabricating a disappearance to trigger a real, resource-draining search while covering up a crime that's already happened. The petition asks for a mandatory federal felony in exactly that scenario, separate from any homicide charge attached to it. It also calls for offenders to repay the cost of the search their lie created, and for mandatory parenting classes for expectant parents, 25 and under. Whether it goes anywhere in Congress is a separate question entirely. But the fact that it exists at all, gathering signatures within days of the reservoir announcement, tells you how deep the anger in this case runs. Past the crime itself, into how the entire system responded to being lied to for weeks. One more detail hasn't gotten nearly enough attention. Days before that 911 call, Herring gave birth to another daughter, Javeayah's baby sister. The Department of Social Services was already involved with the newborn independently, and after the arrests, she was placed with her paternal grandmother, Javeayah Harris's mother. Sit with the sequence for a second. A woman, full-term pregnant, telling a 911 dispatcher she couldn't keep up with a 4-year-old who, according to warrants, had already been dead and dissolved for weeks, then giving birth days later to a baby who now has to grow up with all of this attached to her name. That grandmother is currently grieving one granddaughter while raising an infant she never expected to raise alone.
Personally, there's some very harsh words that I would like to use about Johmarea and Michilae and their actions. But I will not do that. And I will not do that to protect and maintain the integrity of this case. But I will tell you this. I will not refer to them as mom and dad or mother or father. They don't deserve that title. I stand before you saying this is one of the most difficult, deeply disturbing, and emotionally taxing investigations this office has ever worked, and it's weighed heavily on this sheriff's office, all these other law enforcement agencies, all these people behind me that's worked tirelessly to bring this to an end, and it's weighed heavily on our community. I am truly sickened to share what this investigation has uncovered. From the moment Javeayah was reported missing, the sheriff's office, as well as our law enforcement partners and first responders, we responded with urgency, determination, and compassion. What started as an exhaustive and complex search quickly grew to something that I would have never imagined. Now understand, I cannot discuss all the details, but at this time I can share that a few human remains were recovered in an area known as Cedar Creek Reservoir, also known as Stumpy Pond in Fairfield County. These remains were immediately sent to the State Law Enforcement Division, and through analysis, the DNA of the remains are consistent with being the biological offspring of Johmarea and Michilae. I want to also share with you that through forensic evidence, statements, and analysis, extensive and deliberate efforts were made to destroy and conceal evidence following Javeayah's death. Our information reveals the use of corrosive chemicals and other tools that were used to accelerate the destruction of her little body. After this was completed, these two individuals poured what remains were left of Javeayah into the Cedar Creek Reservoir. These subjects went through great lengths to cover their repulsive and revolting actions. In my 37-year career in law enforcement, I have never, ever heard of anything so horrific. As a result of this information, it's unlikely that the entirety of Javeayah's body or any other remains from this point forward will be recovered. And I'll say this again, we had all hoped and prayed to find her body, but with the information we've uncovered, that's simply not possible. I want to also announce additional charges for destruction and desecration of human remains have been filed against these two individuals. I know this is heartbreaking for anyone who's followed this case. It's heartbreaking for our office. For all the law enforcement across the state that's worked on this case, countless hours to find every piece of evidence with the hope of bringing Javeayah home. It's heartbreaking to our community. Our commitment has been to pursue the truth regardless of how difficult it may be. While no announcement can lessen the profound loss in this case, our commitment remains unchanged. Today is not only about the evidence recovered, it's about a child whose life was taken far too soon. While today marks a painful chapter in this case, it does not end our work. Our investigators will continue to pursue every lead, examine every piece of evidence, and work closely with the Second Circuit Solicitor's Office to ensure that justice for Javeayah is pursued.
For anyone catching up on the earlier parts, the call came June 30th, just before 9 at night. Herring told 911 that Javeayah had been playing outside and vanished, and when asked about her daughter's health, she mentioned autism, though no formal diagnosis was ever confirmed publicly. That call triggered a massive multi-agency search almost immediately. No Amber Alert was issued because authorities said the situation didn't meet legal criteria, and by July 3rd, searchers had covered thousands of acres without finding anything. On July 4th, Sawyer announced the shift from missing child case to homicide investigation, and both parents were arrested. Warrants detailing their confessions followed on July 6th. Then came July 9th, and everything you just heard. Through all of it, Aiken hasn't waited for a courtroom to grieve. Vigils were held right after the arrests, and again after the July 9th update. A memorial at the family's mailbox has grown to cover the length of the front yard, filled with stuffed animals and balloons. Since Javeayah was reportedly last seen in pink Minnie Mouse pajamas with braided hair and pink beads, one resident said she never met this little girl personally, but as a mother herself, that's simply how the community connects, as family. A local restaurant owner cooked and delivered dozens of meals to search crews without anyone asking him to. For a while, before any of the last 2 weeks' revelations came out, this was just about a 4-year-old girl a community refused to let go of. Both parents remain in custody without bond. They face homicide by child abuse, which carries 20 years to life, plus the new destruction and desecration charges, and Herring's separate charge for filing a false police report. Investigators say more charges are still possible as they continue reconstructing Javeayah's final weeks, and the effort to recover any remaining evidence from that reservoir hasn't stopped. Everything in this video is drawn from arrest warrants, sheriff's office press conferences, and on-record statements. Both parents have been charged, not convicted, and remain presumed innocent unless a court says otherwise. This case is still active, and there's a real chance more comes out before it's over. If you want to be here when it does, subscribe to this channel.